Synopsis of the Books of the Bible. Ezra. By JND Darby. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. 2 Timothy 3 verses 16 and 17. Synopsis of the Books of the Bible. By John Nelson Darby. Ezra, chapters 9 and 10. Disobedience, followed by humiliation and confession. Alas! As soon as he can look into these things, he finds the law already broken, evil already come in. The people of Israel had not kept themselves separate from the people of the lands, and even the princes and rulers had been chief in this trespass. Ezra is confounded at this, and remains overwhelmed with grief the whole day. Can it be that the remnant, whom God had snatched, as it were, from the fire, have so soon forgotten the hand that delivered them, and married the daughters of a strange god? Those who trembled at Jehovah's word having assembled with him, Ezra humbles himself on account of it. At the time of the evening sacrifice, he pours out the deep sorrows of his heart before the Lord. A great multitude have their hearts touched by grace. There is no prophetic answer, as so often before had happened in similar circumstances, but there is an answer from God in the hearts of the guilty. "We have sinned," said one among them, "yet now there is hope in Israel concerning this thing." And they set themselves heartily to the work. Israel is summoned, each one under pain of exclusion, to come up to Jerusalem, and they assembled at the time of rain, for the matter was urgent, and the congregation acknowledged it to be their duty to conform to the law. Under the hand of Ezra, and by the diligence of those who were appointed to this work, it was accomplished in 2 months. As for all those who had taken strange wives, they gave their hand that they would put away their wives. They confessed their sin and offered a ram for this trespass. Separation from all who are not the people of God. Once more we find that which characterizes the operation of the Spirit of God, and the intervention of God among his people, with respect to their walk and moral condition, is separation from all who are not the people of God as they were. Those of the priestly family who were unable to produce their genealogy had been excluded from the priesthood as polluted, and those among the people who were in the same case were not acknowledged. They positively refuse any participation in the work to the people of the land who wished to join them in building the temple, and, finally, with respect to their own wives, several of whom had borne them children, they have to put them away, and to separate themselves, at whatever cost, from all that was not Israel. It is this which characterizes faithfulness in a position like theirs, that is, a remnant come out from Babylon, and occupied in restoring the temple and service of God, according to that which yet remained to them. God's unfailing comfort in his compassion. Moreover, we see that God did not fail to comfort them with his testimony, sweet and precious consolation. But the power of the Gentiles was there. That which appertained to authority and the throne at Jerusalem, and to the power of ordaining, which belonged to it, was not re-established. The public sanction of God was not granted. Nevertheless, God blessed the remnant of his people, when they were faithful, and the most prominent thing, and that which should dwell on our hearts, is the grace which, in the midst of such ruin, and in the presence of the Gentile throne set up through Israel's sin, could still bless his people, though acknowledging the Gentile throne, which God had established in judgment upon them. Their position is clearly and touchingly stated in Ezra 9 verses 8 and 9. See note. Note. Only for were in verse 9, we must read end of note. It is a solemn season, when God, in his compassion, encourages and sustains the little remnant of his people in the midst of their difficulties, and owns them, as far as possible, after the ruin which their unfaithfulness has brought upon them, such ruin that God had been constrained to say of them, Lo ami. It is most afflicting to see the people, after such grace as this, plunging again into fresh unfaithfulness and departure from God. But such is God, and such is man. God's everlasting mercy and his ways to the coming of Messiah. We must ever bear in mind that Israel was an earthly people, and their full place in blessing now, see note. That of the seat of God's power in righteousness upon earth, so that their relationship to another power, now set up among the Gentiles, was peculiar. But, if this be borne in mind in the application of the contents to other circumstances, the instructions afforded by this book are extremely interesting, as exhibiting the principles of conduct in which faith is displayed in the difficulties connected with a partial restoration from a ruined state, the dependence on God by which man is sustained in the midst of these difficulties, God's own ways in respect to his servants, and the absence of all pretensions to re-establish what could not be set up in power. Besides this, we have to view the book of Ezra as giving that particular display of God's mercy and ways which left the rod of Judah subsisting till Shiloh came. No Shekinah was in the temple, no Urim and Thummim with the priest. But there was a sovereign intervention of God in that mercy which endures forever, so that occasion was given to Messiah's coming according to the promises made to the fathers. The judgment of the Gentile power of Babylon carried with it the witness of a better deliverance, but for this, the full time of God's purposes was to be awaited. Note. I say now, because, till Samuel's time, Israel was called to be blessed in obedience under priesthood, God being their king. But after David's time in view of Christ, the nation became the seat of God's power in righteousness, so far as it enjoyed the blessing. End of note.